My Haida name is Gawgwis. My English name is Jason Alsop, and I'm the elected president of the Haida Nation. Yeah, the Haida Recognition Act is important on a few fronts. Under the Haida Nation Constitution, the governing powers have been bestowed to the Council of the Haida Nation, to an elected body to represent the Haida Nation as a whole. And that goes back to formally to 2004, when the Constitution was formally adopted by the Haida Nation through our own House of Assembly, through our own legislative process. From a British Columbia perspective, that has the province of BC, formally, legally recognizing the Haida Nation as the title and rights holders to Haida Gwaii, and the Council of the Haida Nation as the governing body on behalf of the Haida Nation. And so it essentially acknowledges our Constitution, our ability to have our own governance system that blends our hereditary governance system with political elected representation. And it also acknowledges the Constitution and that ability to self-determine, which is really powerful when you think about the history of the Indian Act and the policies that started to try define who was Haida, assimilate people and try to divide people from each other and from the land. And so under our Constitution, any person of Haida ancestry is recognized as a Haida citizen. It's inclusive and not divisive amongst Haida people. It shows how we've adapted to meet our current needs and challenges. The recognition agreement doesn't change anything with how our communities are currently run when it comes to our village councils, to our band councils. So it doesn't change anything in terms of the programs or services or that fiduciary responsibility of the Crown that exists through the Indian Act. So it's not going to reduce or change any of those programs or services or how things work in the status quo. The reserves remain in place. In many ways, that status quo is going to remain, and that provides, certainty and clarity for Haida citizens who are band members, that, things are going to remain as they are, as we've known them. But it also creates the space for the Haida Nation to look internally at what does this future relationship with the Crown look like, in exploring what does this transition look like to truly fulfill our mandate, which is really around sovereignty and self-sufficiency and stewardship of the lands and waters. And so we've created the space for ourselves to work at a pace that fits the Haida Nation, that fits Haida citizens, to really move forward in this process with all the information and knowledge that we need to understand what it's going to take to clearly define our relationship with the Crown into the future, into the short, medium, and long term, because we recognize sovereignty is about managing and taking care of everything under your own laws and jurisdiction, and figuring out how money works and how the British Columbia and Canadian citizens who also make Haida Gwaii home, how do they interface with Haida governance, how do they interface with BC and Canada. And so there's a lot of pieces to figure out, but we've created the space to do that with each other, internally to the Haida Nation, internally to Haida Gwaii with our neighbors, the municipalities and citizens, and really sets the stage for all the work that we need to do to figure out how do we maintain all of the services here on Haida Gwaii, transportation and health and power, and there's work happening a little bit on all these fronts, but it's really a exciting and beautiful thing to explore what the future looks like for Haida Gwaii. From a Haida Nation perspective, we didn't need to pass legislation or do anything to recognize ourselves that the people had stood up many years ago and created this governance system to manage Haida Gwaii, manage our affairs. The provincial Haida Nation Recognition Act and the federal legislation that will follow are essentially BC and Canada recognizing our governments and going into their systems to give themselves the tools that they need to properly engage with us under the governance that the Haida Nation has identified as the way that we want to move forward government to government. So, what we're ultimately trying to do here is look after the land, look after the water, look after our culture, look after the people,